Single men of Reddit, what made you definitely not want a second date with a woman you went out with? We went to her place and her pets and plants were all dead. I saw goldfish floating upside down in a fish tank. And she had a dead hamster in a cage on her dining room table. She said that happens a lot and all I'm imagining is hamster after hamster starving to death right in front of her. The word sociopath floated into my mind. I made some excuses to leave and she went a bit nutty at that point, which concerned me quite a bit, but at least I already figured her head was seriously spun. She rolled her eyes when I said she looked nice. She had put in a lot of effort. Criticized where I chose to eat. Complained about the music we went to see. I spent the whole date anxious. Assuming that she was hating every moment, because, you know, she didn't have anything positive to say about anything. Then I had a good time. Let's do this again. Now I'm good. I've got enough negativity and mixed signals coming from my own brain. I don't need that coming from the outside too. I once went to a movie as a first date with a girl. Her idea. Bad idea. She got there late and the movie had already started. She then wanted to talk during the movie in the middle of the crowded theater. I didn't shush her or anything. But everything was a one-word answer. Trying to end the conversation. She got up halfway through and said I was obviously not interested in her. She was right. You'd have to get rid of your cat. I'd get rid of you first. And that was the end of that. Actually had 2 women tell me I'd have to get rid of my cat. Pretty much immediately. FCKU. A cat is a life commitment. I went on a date with a lady I met online. She talked about 3 things on this date and little else. Her pets. Her ex. The last time she had gastro. There was no second date. She had a 1-year-old and told me about a recent nasty divorce. No problem until she told me that the divorce was due to the baby not being his. Went to dinner. She was on her phone the entire time texting. Even when we were talking. That's when you put down cash for your half of the bill and walk out. Fuck that. I drove her home because she didn't have a car at that time. And she asked we stop for an errand. To pick up matching t-shirts she had designed for her and her ex. That's rude that she didn't make you one. She said haha, can't wait for you to meet my older brother. He just got out of jail for selling heroin. Me. Didn't you tell me your younger brother was addicted to heroin? Huh? Oh yeah. Wonder how that happened. FCK this shitty, I'm out. When we saw Fury in theater she read the subtitles out loud. I'm not sure if she thought I couldn't read them or if she needed to sound them out. But I knew at that moment no follow-up was necessary. I arrived at her place and she told me to hop in her car as she just needed to drop something off at a friend's house real quick. It wasn't a friend. It was someone she had an appointment to sell those hot oil infusers and their millions of scented inserts to. I sat in a stranger's home for 90 minutes while they smelled them all. She wanted to go to dinner afterwards and I asked her to please drop me off at the car so I could go home. She had a business to run. Guess it didn't even make it a whole first date. Edit. Holy shitty show. This blew up. 1. For everyone telling me I should have gotten an Uber Lyft. This was before those things existed. Which wasn't all that long ago. 2. She was selling Scentsy. 3. I never knew that our anti-MLM was a thing. Makes sense that it is. I'll have to drop by sometime and say hello. Were you incensed? When she said I'm so glad my fiancé is still deployed. Noped out and left her with the bill for that dinner. She forgot to take off her wedding ring at the second date. She asked if I had any love interests still in existence. When I said no she didn't believe me. She told me she wanted to travel the world and see old friends, who were guys, and thought that I, as a lawyer, should work and pay for her travels. She was insane. She also offered to FCK in her car in the first 5 minutes of meeting. No second date for you. Teeth as black as the night. She didn't have any diseases or syndromes but simply no time to brush her teeth. For the record, I have a good friend who has to see teeth in a profile pic on a dating site or it's no go. Now I know why. If I ask you a question or try to talk, please reciprocate. I hate that I feel like I'm supposed to use up an arsenal of questions that will only get a brief response in return. Met her at a hospital. I was an ER patient for a hand wound. She was a phlebotomist. Asked her out to a movie and then dinner. Had a really excellent talk about comics and movies. We were getting to know each other and flirting. It was clearly a date. At the end when I told her I'd like to do it again, she said her fiancé registered sign probably wouldn't be cool with it a second time. Claimed that she was seeing other guys just to use them for free drinks. Their pool. Their car was nice. Etc. Noped out real quick. Nurse I met on Tinder. She told me she disliked all her patients and that sometimes she would simply ignore them for long periods of time. That's a no from me. Dog. 6 years ago, I went out with a girl who called me a racist because I don't like sushi. She chewed gum through our initial date, which was at a decent Italian place including a bottle of good white wine. And she proceeded to tell me how she had married early. Had 2 kids, girls. Realized she was a lesbian. Left her husband and took most of his money. Lived with girlfriend number 1. Left girlfriend number 1 for number 2. Ended that and then realized that long term, she needed a dick. I note the FCK out of there so fast. Full stop. Full stop. She never asked a single question about me. So frustrating. 1. Suggested we go to the nicest steakhouse in town. 2. When I assumed we would go Dutch or pay for our own tea, she assumed I was paying because she's just old fashioned. 3. Asked me what my debt to income ratio was. 4. Upon learning I had paid off my student loans, demanded that I paid her student loans if I wanted a second date. I drove us to the venue, but I just drove home by myself after paying the bill. First and only date with a girl I barely knew through some friends. I drove to her house. She got in my car and smelled like she had just taken a massive sh*t but forgot to wipe. Went to dinner. I barely ate. Made an excuse to end early. Dropped her off and drove home with the windows down in the middle of winter. Pregnant. But no worries. The father is locked up. This one girl told me she was giving me a chance because a mutual friend said I was nice. She was totally out of my league and we both knew it. But she insisted on acting like it was a favor to go out to dinner with me. If she's not actively happy about seeing me, I don't really want to see her either. I was 32. She was 25. She showed up to dinner high as a kite. Dropped the word CNT several times loud enough for the people around us to hear. She then got loaded during dinner. Ordered an expensive plate and barely touched it. She also told me I'm stupid for still buying books. And childish for listening to music. She also insisted I had to take her out 2-3 times a week. Minimum. It was also implied she'd be moving in with me in the near future. She was unemployed and living at home. Which honestly didn't bother me. The whole jumping into the deep end did. 20 minutes into the date I text my friend. Holy sh*t. Turns out she's awful. She chewed her food with her mouth open. Let's play Simon Says. Went for a walk in the woods. She walked about 5 feet ahead of me the whole time. Would think maybe she was nervous walking alone in the woods with a guy she didn't know. But she's the one that suggested a walk. IDK, it was weird. She didn't even bring her wallet to the restaurant. I would have offered. And obviously ended up paying. But that level of presumptuousness was an immediate turn off. She showed up in a dirty white dress. Her hair looked like it had not been brushed in the months. During dinner she told me that she still lived at home. Never wanted to get a job and that she stole her dad's car while he was asleep to meet me at the restaurant. Then when she found out that I was divorced, she said you didn't work hard enough to save your marriage. I put down the chopsticks, went and paid and said nice meeting you and left. Edit. Holy hell, this blew up. RIP my inbox. I don't know if I'll be able to respond to all of the messages, but thank you internet strangers for the kind words. In case anyone is curious, I've remarried and I adopted her daughter right after the marriage. They are both pretty awesome people. So, you're a mathematician? Is it true all mathematicians are virgins? Statistically, no. Went out for coffee. She brought a bottle of vodka and kept topping up her cup. I politely asked her what the deal was, and she said she liked to party. When it was time to go, she fell over and started screaming that I had to help her up. I did. Told her to wait right there, and left. Edit. I helped her stand up and then bounced. I'm not a complete asshole. Constantly talking about how awful her ex was. In my experience, that's usually a sign that they jumped back into the dating pool too soon. She was part of a MLM scheme like Beachbody or something. Went out with a nice girl with similar interests. But the entire time I kept looking at her teeth and cursing my sensitive nose because I could smell her angas breath when she talked. We meet up for a coffee and mid-afternoon sweet treat. All was going fairly well. Not great chemistry, but she seemed fairly interesting. Then she asked me what I thought was a great first date, maybe second. In hindsight, question. If you knew you were going to go to jail at some point in your future, what do you think it would be for? I thought for a while and said something like insider trading. What about you? I followed up. Without missing a beat. She said murder. Then named the person and reason for their murder. Then suggested if I ever saw their name on the news for being killed, I should tell the police it was her. I hoped she was joking. But I don't think so. Finished my coffee. Said thanks and left. When she asked me for my birthday, then proceeded to tell me everything that was wrong with me as a person based solely on my horoscope. Edit. Since it keeps coming up, I actually have a list of such things. My favorite is that she confessed to doing meth occasionally. If she can't even commit to meth, how can you expect her to commit to you? I had a girl full out yell at me over what I ordered at Chili's. Definitely dodge a bullet there. Edit. For all those asking, I ordered a salad and she wanted me to order chicken crispers. I was supposed to pick her up at noon. I got to the house and knocked. She didn't answer. I texted her. She finally responds and opens the door. She says she's sorry she overslept. Goes to the freezer. Pulls out a handle of vodka. Pulls the tomato juice from the fridge. Mixes a huge Bloody Mary and drinks it down. Makes a second one and says let's go. The date wasn't that bad. But I just can't roll like that. Didn't even offer to make you one. Complete bullshit. She said I'm not really interested in a wrestle relationship with you. That's a refreshing level of honesty tbh. She would want to sit down and essentially power nap every 30 minutes or so. Edit. Apparently I need to tell her to see a doctor. Thanks Reddit. Edit 2. Upon reviewing old messages, she had said that she had been sleeping during the day and staying up all night for a few weeks prior, and this was apparently her first daytime outing in a while. This was the beginning of this summer and we're university students. On a lunch date with a very attractive woman who I shared a couple classes with. She mentioned that she was in the process of getting a divorce. She seemed to want to talk about it. So I indulged. When I asked why things were ending, she said, "He's been cheating on me." That's heavy. How did you find out? Internet history. Pauses. Leans in and whispers he looks at PRN. Oh, I know, I smiled. Is PRN cheating? It's mental cheating. According to one pastor I had, if a man is just friends with, a woman he's not married to, it's an emotional affair. So a married man cannot have any female friends at all. She spent 30 minutes talking about her ex who apparently sat on his ass at home during most of the 18-27 years playing Xbox while she was working 2 jobs and getting her pregnant twice. Then after she finished this speech she spent 10 minutes telling me that she now was going to get a man who had a job and money and he was gonna take care of her and her kids, etc. etc. I left after this part having paid for the dinner and thinking many unpleasant thoughts. First date. Huh? Are you sure you want to be my career? Don't you think that you should wait until our children are old enough to have their lives together? Then you'll be free to do what you want. Me. Listen. I'm leaving. Oh god, the phone, put that thing away. I've literally gotten up and walked out BC, they wouldn't put it away. I don't need constant attention. But you know the type. Yes. If the phone's out, they're either uncomfortable, inconsiderate, or both. Kinda did the same thing. Except I texted them bye. And as they read it I got up and left. Good times. I've got a few. 1. Was an anti-Semite. 2. Was crazy and an anti-Semite. 3. Talked during a movie, A Quiet Place. Of all movies. Boy, that John Krasinski knows how to be quieter than a Jew under the floorboards. Huh. I was cleaning up my area after I ate and started stacking the dishes to make the waiter job easier. She told me to stop and let the help do it. Took me a second to realize she wasn't joking before she started on a rant how I should never help them because they need to learn to help themselves. We sat down at a corner booth and she was sitting really close to me. We both ordered and to start off she was hella rude to our server. Like, I want a lemonade. No ice. Did you get that? Sweetheart? I said no ice. Don't screw it up. So that already a bit of a turn off. And then when our food got in she used like an entire squirt bottle of Heinz 57 ketchup on broccoli cheese casserole. I went out with a doctor. I understand that it's important and she should be proud of it. However, she would not stop talking about how good she was at it. At one point, she said she was thinking of quitting to be a baker and open up a bakery. I asked if she had any experience. Nope. She decided she could do it because she's so smart she could just learn it and be successful right away. I know people who bake professionally and it's a lot of work. You can't just jump into it and open a business. I don't know if I've gone out with anyone quite so insufferable. She slept through Kung Fu Panda and asked me to narrate the plot. She was easy to talk to. Had a bunch of common interests. An interesting personality. And good stories to tell. But I just didn't feel any kind of romantic connection during the process. Friendly reminder that just because someone doesn't want a second date doesn't necessarily mean that they don't like you or that you f***ed up somehow. I wish I'd had the presence of mind to tell her this. She was super rude to our waitress. As if it was the appropriate way to behave towards another human being. Okay, so here's what I've gathered below. Don't shit your pants before going out on a date. Don't talk about f***ing other people. Don't be an alcoholic, don't be a meth head. Don't talk bad about your date. Don't currently have a BF or husband. Don't use the N-word, ever. She asked me to change her diaper. Not her child's. Her own. She showed up in short shorts. Looking super strung out. With several visible self-inflicted cigarette burns on her thighs from that morning. When I asked if she was okay she said it'd heal. She spent a good chunk of the date talking about previous bad dates she had been on recently. She went into pretty good detail about the most recent one from a week prior to our date about how the guy was obnoxious. Invited her back to his place despite an apparent lack of chemistry and was having a hard time taking no for an answer, etc. I could go into more detail because I know all of them. But the whole time she was telling me about these bad dates ad nauseum I so badly wanted to interrupt her and tell her she could add this one to the list, considering she spent the whole time being negative about a bunch of other dates that had nothing to do with me. I met this beautiful girl at a club. And uncharacteristically of me I asked for and got her number. What she had in looks she lacked in brains. But that wasn't even the issue as far as first dates go. After the date, on the way back to her place to drop her off, she made me drive through a neighborhood of multi-million-dollar homes and made it clear that she expected her future husband to provide. To top it all off, her dad was a huge conspiracy theorist and made me sit down to discuss with him dozens of wacky conspiracies while the girl sat silently beside me. F-king awful.